Alright guys, for the next set of problems, you start off having to know how to graph. So for number 8 here, you might want to write down the original equation, which was 3x plus y equals 6. If you have to regraph it, you will probably need a post-it with the graph coordinate plane on it. So just ask me for that piece of graph paper. Graph post-it, I can give you that, or you can do it on a piece of graph paper. So you can just get a piece of graph paper from class and then graph it on that. Now, in order to graph, because this is solve the system by graphing, in order to graph, all equations have to be in slope-intercept form, which means our y has to be isolated. So this first equation they gave you here, 3x plus y equals 6, is not in slope-intercept form. In order to do that, you had to minus 3x on both sides. That's going to cancel the x term. Now getting the y isolated. And then you just rewrite this. These are not like terms. You just write minus 3x or negative 3x plus 6. And now we're going to graph this line. So to graph this line, you have to start at the y-intercept, which is the 6. And then we have to move using the slope. And our slope here is the negative 3. So your m as a slope or rise over run would be like negative 3 over 1. So we're going to count down 3 to the right 1. And you can continue that. We want to line through these points. Okay, my line might be slightly off. So that was the first equation. Then the second equation they gave you was x plus 4y equals negative 20. Again, you have to solve this for y. So in order to do that, you would have to first minus x. Sorry for my writing here. You always move the x term, do the opposite. So it's going to leave with 4y equals now a negative x minus 20. And then you would need to divide everything, each term, because we have a coefficient here, every term by 4. And maybe the mistake now happened because this part, negative x over 4, is written as a fraction negative 1/4 x. And then minus 5 here. So now I can graph this equation starting at a negative 5 on the y-axis. And so my slope is a negative 1/4, so down 1 to the right 4, or up 1 to the left 4. And it would eventually cross right here. They wanted the solution. So this solution, that point, 1, 2, 3, 4, is 4 comma negative 6. Okay. So maybe you missed this because you still are not able to solve for y. And you might need to come and practice that. All right. But maybe you solved it, you missed it because you didn't graph correctly. But if you can't get this into slope-intercept form, guys, the calculator can't help you. Okay. So please make sure you tell me why you missed it and what you learned from going over it with me right now. So if you want to pause the video to fill in those parts, you can. I'm going to go ahead and go to number 9. Sorry about that. Because it also, and these were, written responses. It also was a graphing problem. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase some of this here. I have some room for number 9. All right, so on number 9, we had the first inequality was x plus y is greater than negative 2. Again, we have to solve for the y, isolate the y term. That meant you had to say minus x on both sides. And then now you have y is greater than negative x minus 2. Now we can graph this inequality. Do it just like it's a line. So we start at the negative 2 on the y-axis. our slope here would be -1. So we're down 1 to the right one, or up 1 to the left one. Okay. Now, the thing that you had to know, that this is where I started seeing errors, is what this symbol means. This symbol here means greater than. And because it says greater than, that means you're going to shade above the line. Also, because it says greater than, means the line is a dashed line. So, some people kept the dots because they saw it as a dotted or dashed line, and that's fine. If you want to put little dashes in between, you can. I was not requiring that, but what had to happen was the shading had to happen above this line. Above this area would be here to the right. Okay, so that was the first inequality. The second inequality you had in this system, let me get to it, was we had 2x minus 3y is greater than or equal to -9. So for this one, to solve for the y again, you have to minus the 2x on both sides of the inequality. Now I'm just going to come over here in the space. If you need to go in the bottom, you can keep going down, okay, if you need more room. But I'm just trying to come over here because I'm not going to fill in this. That's what you're doing. So this now should have been -3y. Don't forget this minus sign is showing a negative. It's greater than or equal to a -2x minus 9. And so what had to happen here was now you divide everything by -3. And whenever we divide by a negative, this symbol has to flip. So we should have y is now less than or equal to negative divided by negative makes this a positive 2/3 x plus 3. So now I'm starting on the y-axis at 3, and I'm doing a positive slope of 2/3. That is counting up to the right 3, or down to the left 3. Now, this line has, this inequality has this line underneath it, which means it's going to be a solid line through these points. Let me try to make this a little bit better, sorry. And because I have this inequality, sorry, that symbol right there, that means less than or equal to. So if it's less than, it has to be below. This is what we're going to shade, or shade below. Let me shade it that way. Oops. We're going to shade below. So if I'm shading below my red line, my solid line here, I'm going to do that here. This is going below the line. And where the two shadings overlap is our solution. In this problem, it asks you to place a large capital S in the solution set. The large capital S should have been here. And that's what I checked for. So the open-ended questions, some of the questions that were requiring more steps or more work, were probably worth 6 points versus 5 points. Most of the multiple choice were 5 points, unless you had to work it all the way out. So something like this, because you have to graph the dotted line, that was 2 points. And we have to do the correct shading. That was another 2 points, and your lines had to be right. And then your capital S in the right spot was another 2 points, okay? So that takes care of number 9 for us. Now we're going to get into 10 and 11. Sorry, on 10, right here it says, what is the correct first step for solving by elimination? Now, in order to solve by elimination, the first thing is we have to first line up your x and y terms. our first line up, x, y terms. Now, that's already done for us, okay? The second thing we have to do is find or create. This was on our puzzle notes for day 2. So find or create opposite, I'm going to abbreviate that, opposite terms. The example that was on your notes was a negative 7x, and the opposite of that is a positive 7x. That means opposite terms. Right now, if I'm looking at my x terms, they're both positives. They're not opposites. If I go to my y terms, they're opposite because one's a negative and one's plus. But let me just put these constant. The problem of them not being an opposite is really based on the fact that the coefficient, this is a 4 and this is a 2. So I can create this bottom equation to become an opposite by making it having a coefficient of a 4 as well. So if I multiply every term by 2, we now would have 6x plus 4y, now it's an opposite, equals 8. So really, all I wanted to see is that you could recognize that you can make the y terms opposite by multiplying the second equation by 2 to make now them both have a coefficient of 4 and a negative 4. So the answer was here showing multiplying the second equation by 2. All right, there it is. So this was a 5-point question. Don't forget to tell me, yeah, and this was multiple choice. Don't forget to tell me why you missed this and what you have learned. Okay, that's key for your rescore. All right, and then on number 11, I don't think it's on this page. There we go. This is when you had to work all the way out to get to your solution. So this was worth more points, but it did say solve by substitution. And earlier on the first set of problems, we can use a substitution. We have an x equals or y equals. We have an x equals right here, and it's equal to the 6y plus 3. Sorry, so that means I'm plugging that into, substituting it in for x in the second equation. So we had to use parentheses here. So 6y plus 3 for the x, then I write plus 2y equals 5. Now, to solve for y, you had to combine like terms first. You have a 6y and a 2y. That's going to give you a total of 8 y's. And then you write everything else. Plus 3 equals 5. Now I can solve for the y. And by doing that, I would have to subtract 3 on both sides to isolate this 8y term. This is going to give me 2. I'm going to come over here so we can see what happens here. And then to solve for the y, you have to divide everything by 8. So my y equals 2 8, which can be reduced. Okay, and it can reduce to 1/4. Now let's say maybe you didn't see it as a fraction. Let's say maybe you went to your calculator and you said, let me clear this out, second mode, 2 divided by 8, and you got a decimal. And then you looked at your answer choices and they didn't have decimals on them, but they had fractions. So what you could do is check the fraction. The fractions you have are 9/2, so 9 divided by 2, that is 4.5. And the other fraction you had was 1/4. 1 divided by 4, that is 0.25, so that matches. So we were looking for the answer choice on this one that matched the y being 1/4. So the answer here was 9/2, 1/4. Because this is always your y term. And we knew the y was the same as 1/4, 0.25. All right. So you did have to work that out. Okay. Now, I'm trying to remember. Wait, I'm gonna do 2 more. So yeah, let's just finish this page. The missing of this problem, I think, all stem to not understanding the symbol and how it's graphed. If I have this symbol here, that symbol means greater than. Okay. That symbol means you're going to have a dash line. And that symbol also means we're going to shade above the line. So right here is my dash line. So that means this is where the y is greater than x. Since we're shading above, that means we're looking at sections A and D for that first inequality. For the second equality, it's less than or equal to. Okay. When I have that, it's going to be a solid line, which I see right here. They're solid. So I know this is this inequality here. 4/3 x plus 2. But what you had to know is because it's less, that you have to shade below. And if I'm shading below my blue line, that would put me in D and C. Your solution is where they overlap. And right here, what they have in common is the D. This is where the solution was. This is the answer choice we should have picked for this, okay? This was only a 5-point question because there wasn't a lot of work to be shown. It's just picking the right overlapping shaded region. So make sure you tell me why you missed it and what have you learned since I just now went over it, okay? And then the last one I'm going to do on this section for this video is number 13, where it's asking you to solve by elimination. Hopefully you saw right off the bat that because we have a negative 3y and plus 3y, we should pick to eliminate. You don't have to necessarily copy this down, but we should pick to eliminate the y. So when we do that, we're going to add and we're going to cancel out the y's. And I think the most errors that I saw is that when you add, you have to add everything up. The x terms up gives me a total of 6 x's. When I add the y's, that becomes 0. They're gone. But then we have to add this negative 10 plus 4. And that's going to give me a negative 6. And so what I did see happen is a sign error a lot with this problem. Because some people forgot that that was a negative 6. And then when you divide each side by 6, you should get a negative 1. I might have wrote sign error if you missed it. Because we want the solution, you have to know now that you have to plug back in. It doesn't matter which one you plug it back into. To me, the second equation is the easier one. I'm plugging it in for the x here, so that'd be 2 parentheses, negative 1 plus 3y equals 4. And now we're solving for y. So when I do this, I have a negative 2 plus 3y equals 4. To solve for y, I have to add the 2 to both sides to eliminate that negative 2 and isolate the 3y. My 3y is now going to equal to 6. And then I'm dividing everything by 3. So y here is a positive 2. So your solution was negative 1, comma 2. Alright guys, so that takes care of that section. The last video is going to go over the last 4 problems. Like I said, if you're still needing a better understanding after or need more help, please ask questions. Please come to tutorials. Okay. Please make sure you understand and you can do the problem again on your own if you have to retest. Alright, thanks.